Everyone, good evening. Thank you for coming to Torah for Cheshvan and discussion about parashas Lech Lecha and Ve'era, Avram Avinu's Nisayonos, his challenges that he faced and how he overcame them. So first, I'd like to say an idea about Chodesh Cheshvan. Right now, we're in the month of Cheshvan. So I'll think back to when we were, a few weeks ago, when we were in the midst of the Yom Tov, the holidays. So we had Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Chol Hamoed, Shmini Atzeres, and Chas Torah. So on Shmini Atzeres, Rashi says it's this act of Yom Echad Koshlai Kvidaschem. The Hashem is asking us after all the holidays, please stay one more day. Our departure is difficult. So Rav Yocham Olshin, Lech Shiva, he wonders, what good is us that we're going to stay one more day with Hashem? After all, very soon we're going to be going off into our fields in the winter, or to our homes in the winter, and we're going to be in our homes in the winter, and we're not going to be with Hashem anymore. So what good does it do that we? So what good does it do that we're going to stay Hashem for this one extra day on Shmini Atzeres if eventually we're just going to go back and go through our fields? I'd like to also welcome all of you. I'd like to welcome my mom on Zoom, my dad is in person, my grandma who's in Weathersfield with my Aunt Annie, and welcome all the regulars. And I'd like to welcome my Chavusa, my Israel Chavusa, Alina Heisman from Woodmere. Thank you for coming. So to answer this question, Rav Yocham Olshin, Lech Shiva, he says that actually the purpose of Shmini Atzeres is not just to hold over one more day. The purpose of Shmini Atzeres is not just to hold over one more day with Hashem before we go off into the winter. Rather, the purpose is through this one day of Shmini Atzeres, of being with Hashem this one day, we're going to concretize all the gains that we made during the holidays, and we're going to focus our minds to realize that the way that we're going to be able to live with Hashem throughout the whole winter is by putting our thoughts and actions into the Torah, into learning the Torah and fulfilling the Torah. And through this realization on this one day Shmini Atzeres, we're not going to leave Hashem at all in the winter. Rather, we'll strengthen our connection and commitment to Him through our learning and observing of the Torah. Chodesh Cheshvan is like what Mr. Marion Kaufman once said, as quoted by my parents: 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. And the way we apply this to the holidays is, on the holidays we had our chizuk and inspiration on Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. When we had, like Rabbi Katzin, Marav Shiva, he says we had the seal on our mind, S-E-A-L, on our mind. So on Shir Hashem, on Simchas Torah, we had the chasim on the leaf, on our heart, to devote our hearts to Hashem. But now we don't have any of the holidays anymore. We have Shabbos, but we don't have the holidays. So now it's a 99% perspiration when we put our efforts into the Torah. Does anyone have any final thoughts from the Yom Noraim of the holidays they would like to share? And we focus on Shmini Atzeres and Simchas Torah, we focus on reality that through our connection and commitment to the Torah, the whole winter, we'll be able to strengthen and continue our relationship with Hashem that we built up over the holidays. I'd like to thank Rabbi Avram Jacobowitz, my first Greek Rebbe in PhD at Providence, who taught me this pasuk of Lech Lecha 23 years ago. It was the first pasuk that I remember learning. The pasuk says, Vayomer Hashem al Avram, beginning of the parasha, Lech Lecha. And Hashem said to Avram, Lech Lecha, go for you. Rashi says, Lahanaschol Tzarascha, for your benefit, Avram. Me'artzecha, leave your lands, and leave the city in which you were born, and leave your parents' house, and go al ha'aretz, not to any specific place, but to a place that I, Hashem, will show you, Avram, sometime later on. So simply understood, this is the first sign, the first challenge of Avram, according to most opinions, and it was that he should make this departure. Like the pasuk says, he was 75 years old. That's his advanced age. Avram Avinu was meant to leave his country, leave his birthplace, and leave his father's house. When I was speaking with one of my neighbors who I visit on Shabbos, a senior citizen, he was telling me how great of a challenge this is for an older person who's established in his ways to get up and leave from his surroundings. And as Moshe Franklin points out, that Avram Avinu was not really sure why Hashem wanted him to leave. Like, he wasn't sure what he was going to get out of his trip. Nonetheless, Avram Avinu believed that whatever Hashem wanted, that will be for the best. And Avram went without any questions, picked up, and left his father's house and began the journey. The Mefarshim, by Musar, they asked that Lech Lecha, it seems the ordering is reversed. The pasuk says Avram left his land, his hometown, and his father's house. But Lech Lecha, the way it works is that first you leave your house, then you leave the city, and finally you leave the country. So why is it reverse order? So you're first leaving the country, then your birthplace, and then your father's house. So, the first answer, the Bali must say, is that we have to leave any negative influence that we may have had. So first off, it's my archacha. We have to leave negative forces we may have gotten from our land, from our country. Our country may have taught many good things, but for example, if someone's elected in office who's the Balgaiva, who's an arrogant person, that may lead us to think that it's okay or acceptable, even a good thing, to be arrogant. We may have gotten that from our country. We got certain things from our birthplace, or we got certain things from our hometown. We may think that since many of us come from Boston, the city of champions, that somehow we're more esteemed or on a higher plane than someone who came from Jacksonville or Miami or San Diego, place that has not won many championships. We may think it may be taught to us in our hometown that somehow we're more esteemed than our neighbors and our fellow countrymen in other cities because we come from the city of champions. This is a thought process we need to leave. And Beis Avicha, our father's house, parents' house, we may have learned some things also from there that was not so good. Like, for example, Rabbi Katzenstein, Marash Shiva, Moses of Katzenstein, he said a real story that there was a bachar, a young man, I believe in the yeshiva, who his father used to go to minyan, but if it was raining, then his father would stay home. So this young man grew up thinking that minyan is only something you go to in clear weather, but if it's raining, then you stay home. So this is a poor behavior or thought pattern that this young man got from his father's house, from his father, that he needed to shuck and get rid of at some point later on. Of course, it's very important. So another example, one of my neighbors, non-Jewish, father and sons in 10th grade, always play frisbee. Very often they're playing frisbee, especially on the weekends. And even though the son is objectively a very good athlete, but his father is always saying critical and demeaning remarks, saying, "Oh, that was a bad throw. how come you have to make me run so far? Never compliments when it's a good throw or a good catch. So this young man, the 10th grader, grows up thinking that this is the way you're supposed to relate to someone. To always be critical and never be complimentary. So if this young man were Jewish, he would have the chiyuv of Nisayonos to get rid of the thought pattern and adopt a more positive thought pattern. Now, it's also very important to keep the good teachings that we got from our parents. Many of our parents, even if they do not teach us Torah, but they taught us Derech Eretz, they taught us how to interact with people, proper midos in some respects. And this is very important to remember. Like my grandfather, whose birthday would have been yesterday, was always known as a very positive person, saw the best in other people, didn't speak Lashon Hara. And this is a shtimus, this is lessons that we got that are worth keeping on to. We don't just totally disregard our past. We look for the positive and try to hold on to them. So far we've been talking about ways of acting that person has actively gotten from his surroundings, from his country, from his hometown, his city, and from his father's house. And Rabbi Katzin, he says that if a person used to view something as chashuv, as having esteem or value, but it really doesn't have value, then it's up to him to rewrite the script. First is to say what I thought had value really does not have value, and then he'll be like a blank piece of paper to be rewritten over to adopt new things which truly have value, and he'll be able to incorporate them as having value. When I spoke with Rabbi Gerko on Shabbos, he was saying that actually the Nisayonos of Avinu, in his opinion, has to also do with internal desires and habits that one was born with. For example, I'll say some examples. If there was a person who's naturally sedentary, naturally doesn't like moving around, so he would have a nisayon to get up and get out and build a sukkah. He would have to, that's his challenge, to get up and do something physical, do a mitzvah. Or if a person, on the contrary, if a person is very active, he always is out doing things, then to be sedentary and rest on Shabbos is a challenge that he's able to handle. That it's incumbent on him to try to handle it. Like my great grandfather, Mr. Ben Braden, my grandmother said he was always a very active person, out doing things, but yeah, on Shabbos he rested. He was able to do this. And like Miller told me that we have to use our past to serve Hashem. He showed me this many times, that we use our past to serve Hashem. For example, like in sports, we learn many good midos, like hard work, teamwork, dedication, sticking to a goal. So whatever positive we got from our past is important that we should hold on to. So the Ramban says, so the first general category we discussed was that the Nisayonos of Avinu is a lesson for all of us that we need to leave certain external forces that were imposed upon us and certain natural ways of being. We have to overcome them, and then we have to hold on to the positive aspects. The Ramban says that the sign of Avinu was increasing difficulty in leaving places to which he was emotionally attached. First off, he had some attachment to his country. He may have had some sort of national pride. Second off, Lech Lecha, he may have had some pride about being from his hometown. And then third, he was emotionally close with his parents. So therefore, he had to leave that. That was the biggest concern. That's what this last. So he had to leave his parents who he was close with. That's what John Pan says, the fact that he left them. And he was willing to go Al Eretz Yisrael to this unknown place. I think one way to read the Nisayonos of Avraham Avinu is talking about a place of comfort. Lech Lecha me'eretzecha u'mi'molatzecha u'mipnei avicha. So a person may be comfortable in his country. He may know the tax system, the laws. He may have some pull with the government. So the first Nisayon is to leave the country, to leave these comforts. The next Nisayon is mi'molatzecha, from your birthplace. So he may know his hometown, where the street lights, where the stop sign. He may know the local politicians. He knows where the shul is, what the code is to the shul. So there's some comfortability from being in one's hometown. Then there's mipnei avicha. In a person's family house, he knows where the bathroom is, where the sink is, who does the shopping, who does the cooking. He's familiar with the normal courses of action in the house. So this is another Nisayon, another challenge for Avraham Avinu to leave the place where he's comfortable, his father's house, and go to an unknown place. So if we are successful, then Hashem will be zochah to bracha, like the pasuk says, the bracha, the Rashi will be bracha. If we're successful in getting rid of the old ways of being and thinking, if we're successful in leaving places we may be emotionally attached to, if we're successful in leaving a place of comfort and go to a new place where Hashem wants us to, then we'll be zochah, we'll be merited to blessing. We showed and discussed what is the purpose for Nisayonos, what is the purpose for challenges. The Rambam's reason for Nisayonos is so that a person could demonstrate to others how much he loves Hashem and how much he's in the presence of Hashem, Yiras Shamayim, and thereby come to serve Hashem. So Avraham Avinu, with his Nisayonos, the 10 tests, he was coming to show other people how much he loved Hashem, how much he feared Hashem, and thereby how he was going to serve Hashem the best way. And this is for our Nisayonos as well. Sometimes a person could have a Nisayon which is private, but other times it may be public. It may be in front of other people where he has to stand up and do a mitzvah or refrain from doing an avera that will be a kiddush Hashem. One of my friends from Sharon, who was at college, he told me that he has done a sign in the area of tznius, of modesty, that was in front of other people, and he was able to show the dignified way that a Jewish young man would act. The Ramban's reason for Nisayonos is for the betterment of the tested party. So, Rabban, Marashi from Muncie, told me at one point to learn this Ramban every day. And Ramban says that the purpose of a Nisayon and the purpose of a test is for the betterment of the person being tested, to bring out latent potential that's inside of himself. A person may have certain potential to serve Hashem, but until it's brought out b'poel in actuality, he's not going to be rewarded nearly as much as if he actively carried it out. Maharishi Rabbi Katzin, he said that the more pronounced the test and stronger the test, the stronger the challenge, that shows the greater the potential for greatness inside that person. If it's a moderate test, then a person may have moderate potential. But if it's a very, very strong test, that shows the person has tremendous potential for greatness. The Medrash says, Nisayon achar nisayon, gedulin achar gedulin. Test after test, greatness after greatness. The more a person is tested, the more significant, the more number of times, the stronger the test, the greater he can become. Earlier we quoted from Rashi. Rashi says, Lech Lecha is l'hanascha u'tovascha, that the test is for your betterment. So I think this goes according to either Rambam or the Ramban. According to the Rambam, who said that the purpose of a test is to prove to other people how one is to love Hashem and show that he's the presence of Hashem. So this is a good thing for a person to have his zchus, to have the merit of being able to show someone else how it is to serve Hashem. That's a great merit for a person. Therefore, it's for his betterment that he's able to show the other person how to love Hashem and fear Hashem. Now, like the Ramban, that the purpose of a test is to bring out the best inside of a person. The test is definitely for a person's best interest, because then he'll bring out his best interest and he'll bring out his best potential, and he'll get rewarded for living out his potential. So, the 10th, now I'd like to skip to the 10th test, which we find in this week's parasha, this upcoming week's parasha Vayera. So, in the last Aliyah, the pasuk says, "Va'elkim Nisayos Avram." Hashem tested Abraham, and this is also a Lech Lecha. The pasuk in Vayera also says Lech Lecha, which many say learn up the Rashi the same way, that the 10th test is the Hanascha ul Shabashcha, for Abraham's betterment. So I'd like to share a few specific insights from the parasha of the Akedah, which will hopefully shed some light on this story. This is the story of the Akedah Yitzchak, the binding of Isaac on the altar. So Rabbi Braun, my Rashi from Muncie, he told us that at the beginning, if you want to follow in the Chumash, we're going to point to a few places. So the first one is Parashat Beis Pasuk Aleph. So the Malach says, "Vayomer Elov Avraham Vayomer Hineni." The Malach said, "Avraham," and Avram said, "Here I am." Whereas at the end of the Akedah, in Parashat Beis Pasuk Aleph, when the Malach calls Avram, he says, "Vayomer Avraham, Avraham." He calls Avraham's name twice. So Rebron said that the first time when Avram was being called into service, it was very easy to bring him into the service. All Hashem needed to do was call him once. But once he was in the service of Hashem, in order to get him away from that, the Malach had to call him twice. Avraham, Avraham. And this is a lesson for us. Right now, last week, Kim night was 4:11 p.m. Friday. It's a big Nisayonos to make Shabbos on time. It's a big challenge. We should think to ourselves, if we're on the computer Friday afternoon and we realize Shabbos is coming, so will we respond upon the first call? Shabbos is coming, and we shut off our computer and get ready for Shabbos. Or does it take two calls? Do we have to say, Shabbos is coming, and only then will we shut off our computer? Same thing when we're in the midst of a Dahayim Shabbos, an elevated Shabbos, and Shabbos is finally over, now around 5:30, and do we have to be pulled away from Shabbos to be told twice, Shabbos is over, and then we go back and turn on our computer? Or is it easy to pull us away? We just say, Shabbos is over, and right away we're on our computer. It's just something to keep in mind about where our mind is at. Another idea from Parashat Beis Pasuk Vav. Pasuk says, "Vayichu shneim yachdav." The two of them went together. Avram and Yitzchak went up the mountain. In this case, what happened is, the way we first to explain is that Avram Avinu knew he was going to be shechting his son, he was going to be slaughtering his son, but Yitzchak thought there was going to be an animal that was going to be the shechita. So Yitzchak was walking up the mountain, no problem, but Avram L'chayra, you would think it would be hard for him to walk up the mountain, because he knew he was going to be doing this difficult task of shechting his son. Nonetheless, vayichol shneim yachdav, they went together at the same pace. Rabbi Naftali Reich from Muncie, he says, usually if a person has some bad news, he's going to be moving more slowly. He's not going to do it with the same sweetness, the same zrizas, the same quickness. Nonetheless, Avram Avinu went at the same pace as Yitzchak, even when Avram knew he was going to be shechting his son. This shows how Avram fulfilled Ratzon Hashem with such a zrizas and alacrity. Two psukim later, again the pasuk says Vayechol shneim yachdav. They went together. This is after, like Rashi explains, at this point Yitzchak realized that he was going to be the one being slaughtered. Nonetheless, he went at the same pace as Abraham, as his father. He didn't slow down as if it was like bad news he was going to get slaughtered. He went willingly up the mountain. Rashi says that Yitzchak was 37 years old. Yitzchak was not like some naive, shy boy who was taken for a whim by his father. Yitzchak was a man of 37 years old who decided on his own that he was willing to go forth with the Akedah, was being bound up. The Rambam says that Abraham's decision, and also Yitzchak, was after a 3-day journey. It was not a whimsical, on-the-spot, temporal type of decision. It was a fully premeditated action with a 3-day journey, and both Avram and Yitzchak decided they wanted to go forth with the Akedah. That Yitzchak would give birth to the Jewish people. So Avram could have wanted to make that a reality. But yet Avram put all considerations to the side, and he said, no, I'm going to go forth, and he obeyed the word of Hashem, regardless of future considerations. Let Hashem worry about the considerations. Like we spoke about earlier, Moshe Feinstein says here also that Avram Avinu went forth with the Akedah without asking questions about what was, what's going to be, why is Hashem wanting me to do this, what's the benefit. He just went and did what Hashem wanted without asking any questions. My grandmother told me a few months ago that the main lesson of the Torah is obeying the word of Hashem when Hashem asks. And my grandmother stated Avram Avinu at the Akedah is the main example, that Avram Avinu obeyed the word of Hashem to bind his son on the altar and go forth with the shechita. And even though there were so many considerations why not to do it, he maybe, as his love for his son, he would not have wanted to do it. But nonetheless, he went forth with the Akedah, and he showed how much, like the Rambam says, how much he loves and fears Hashem. A more recent example I'd like to share from this past Shabbos that Rabbi Gerkel told me. Rabbi Gerkel, Rabbi Stoughton, is sitting Shiva for his father as if he got up on Shabbos. So on Shabbos he was telling us a story about his father, the Nifter, Rabbi Moshe Gerkel. Rabbi Moshe Gerkel grew up at least he was stationed in England. And all he wanted was to go learn about the Lubavitcher Rebbe. So at some point he made the trip to New York, Crown Heights, 770, and he started learning by the Rebbe. However, at around 1960, the Rebbe announced that the Olam, that his Talmidim should leave his presence and go out into different places in the world and spread Yiddishkeit. So Rabbi Moshe Gerkel, after having such chukah, such desire to want to learn by the Rebbe, as soon as the Rebbe said it's time to leave, Rabbi Moshe Gerkel packed his bags and went to Dorchester in Massachusetts. That's how much he was able to overturn his natural inkling to want to be by the Rebbe. So now the Rebbe said to go, and it was the Ratzon of the Rebbe and Ratzon Hashem's desire. So Rabbi Moshe Yurko went to Dorchester and went and spread Yiddishkeit. He wasn't bound by his love to be close to Rebbe. What was more important was to do Ratzon Hashem, what the Rebbe wanted, what Hashem wanted, and thereby Rabbi Moshe Yurko was willing to go to Dorchester and leave the presence of his Rebbe. Like in Mishnah Avos, the Gamliel says, Parak Beis Mishnah Dalid, that the avodah of a person is to nullify his own desires and take on what Hashem wants of him as being the true desire, as being what he really wants, to adopt what Hashem wants as what he wants. Does anyone have any comments until now? Thank you. I'd like to deal with one question that many people ask about the Akedah. So the question is, where was Yitzchak after the Akedah? Because the pasuk says that Abraham and his attendants came down the mountain, but does not say that Yitzchak came down the mountain. So what happened to Yitzchak? And why didn't he come down with Abraham? So the Sefer that I brought from Rishkat to Shari Aaron, he is actually bothered by this question, but he brings two answers. The first answer from the Ibn Ezra and the Radak is like a lot davka, means even though the Torah did not say that Yitzchak came down with Abraham, but really the Ibn Ezra and the Radak say that Yitzchak did come down with Abraham, come down the mountain. And second answer from Midrashim and other Mefarshim is that Yitzchak did not personally come down the mountain with Abraham, but there was some sort of cheshbon l'shem shemayim, some sort of calculation for Hashem's sake. For example, cited, it could be that Abraham sent Yitzchak to learn Torah elsewhere, like Yaakov who learned the Yeshiva Shem Be'ever. Could be Abraham sent Yitzchak after the kids to go learn there as well. So since it was better for Yitzchak to learn Torah elsewhere, he did not come down the Akedah he did not come down the mountain with Avram after the Akedah, rather he went to go learn Torah. So again, the question is, why didn't Yitzchak come down the mountain with Avram after the Akedah? First answer is really he did come down with Avram. Second answer is that he went to do another activity like learn Torah. One of the actions that Avram did at the beginning of this upcoming week's parasha is welcoming the guests. Now, the Mefarshim say this is not considered one of the Nisayonos, even though Avram pushed himself greatly. It was a very hot day, third day of the Milah, when he was in the most pain, and he welcomed the guests. But since welcoming the guests was one of his strong points, certainly gets reward for it, but it wasn't like the ultimate Sabbath said, is that he went against his nature. Like, for example, if he would have had to refuse the guests, that would have been going against his nature. But welcoming the guests, even though he pushed himself and he receives reward and did the right thing, but it's not considered one of the Nisayonos, one of the tests. In Avraham Avinu's tent, one of the things he did was he served food. So Avram and Sarah, this pasuk says, "Ve'ela bakar batz Avram." Avram makes the cattle. They serve milk. They serve meat. So in the first year, discuss what's the considerations of milk and meat. So maybe it was before Matan Torah, they didn't have to keep the Torah. Maybe the milk was served first, and then the meat was served after. That's what the Psukim relate. So that's not a problem. So I want to clarify a few of the halachas of kashrus as they pertain to meat and milk and meat. So again, if a person tastes meat on their tongue, but does not spit it out, but does not swallow it, but rather spits it out, then they're allowed to eat or drink milk right after. The pasuk says, when the pasuk relates about concept nefesh asher asu b'charan, the soul that they made in Haran, so Targum Unkla says Ishtabim Deraisa, that Avraham brought them into the service of Hashem, the service of the Torah. So all the people in Avraham's orbit was eventually meant to bring them into the service into the service of the Torah. Like Rabbi Beer says, that Avraham basically was giving them food in order to eventually get them to accept monotheism. So the next halacha I'd like to cover is about going from milk to meat. The posting at my yeshiva, Rabbi Yeshua Gams, taught the following procedure. If a person ate milchig, if he ate pizza for lunch, grilled cheese, drank milk, and then he waited 1 full hour or more, then he may eat meat without compulsion, without doing any of the procedures. If there's a 1 or more hour break between milk and meat, milk coming first and then meat, then the meat may be eaten without any further action. However, for example, if a person drank coffee with milk within an hour before dinner, for example, he drank coffee with milk at 6 p.m. and wanted to eat fleishig meat dinner at 6:30 p.m., then he would need to do the following 3 actions. 1 is to rinse out one's mouth or take a drink. 2 is to rinse one's hands. And 3 is to eat some sort of bread or Nisayonos item. So again, if a person eats milchig, eats dairy, and then waits an hour, then he or she can eat meat without any other actions. But if the milk is consumed within 1 hour of the meat, then the person must rinse out one's mouth or take a drink, rinse one's hands, and eat a bread or Nisayonos item. May our homes be zocha to be filled with kedusha and tara, with holiness and purity, like the home of Avinu and Shari Beni. I want to sing a song that my mother played on a tape when I was young, and we sang this over Shabbos. Maybe you're familiar with this as well. A song about Avinu's departure of Lech Lecha. Lech Lecha, to a place where I will show you. Lech Lecha, to a place you do not know. Lech Lecha, on thy journey I shall take you, and you shall be a blessing, and you shall be a blessing, and you shall be a blessing, Lech Lecha. So maybe Zocha to take all the she'ifas and all the discussion we spoke about being a Lech Lecha, leaving whatever negative forces or ways of thinking that we may have been taught by our country, our birthplace, our hometown, or by our family. Should hold on to the good ones, overcome our nature. When it's necessary, leave entities that we're close to, leave our comfort zone, and maybe merited to pass all of our tests, whether it's to show other people how to love and fear Hashem, or to bring out the best that's inside of ourselves. May we zocha to act with zrizas, with alacrity and clarity, of wanting to fulfill the Ratzon Hashem, to fulfill what Hashem wants of us, even when it's difficult, even when we're going, like also from Sabatka says, against our desires, against our normal way of wanting to be, against our natural way. When we go against that, it's a true Nisayon. One test after another, one level of greatness after another. The deeper the test, the more the potential for greatness. May we be married to reach our greatest potential through our Nisayonos, and give nachas ruach and give pleasure to Hashem with everything we do. Good evening.